full view you can imagine. Problem is, like, Dave is kind of correct. I don't know what that view's like now since the LA fires. But by people, y'all do know we had a women's tournament. And this has to do with the LA fires because I was watching a little UCLA USC yesterday. And Juju Watkins, and when you and Dave were talking and giving out the medals, Dacus, this reminded me of it when he talked about, Pepperdine, the most beautiful view I've ever seen in my life. And it is gorgeous. And then Dave was like, I don't know what it looks like, looking over Malibu right now. The announcer, and I have no idea who it was, during the UCLA, when Juju Watkins did something, he goes, Juju Watson has caught the women's basketball world by storm. She certainly lit the world of Los Angeles on fire. And I just remember right when he said it, I said, oh, damn, homie. Like, I don't know if that was like you thought you were cute or you just were thinking that it makes sense to say. And normally you could say, she set the world a storm. Not right after a hurricane. You don't say she's burning down L.A. after them fires now, do you? If we were coming back from a bombing incident, don't be like, dude, she's bombing everyone. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm crazy, but I don't know why. It's not funny, but it is like.
It's one of those moments.
It was one of those moments that, like, I'm watching the game because, I bet on a little women's basketball.
It catches you off guard.
And, yeah, it caught me off guard. She has set Los Angeles on fire. And I was like, damn, girl, don't blame her. I've already seen enough silly stories about, like, people underground and, like, everything crazy. But, man, speaking of crazy, man, the hoops. We got the NFL movement going on. We got so much going on. We got, luckily, on Mondays, we kick things off with the best in the business. My buddy Jake Crane, who's always tearing it up, tears up the bookie, tears up the airwaves, tears it up on the tube. Crane and Company, if you ain't watching that show, are you a serious sports fan? I don't think so. Jake, what's up on this Motorboat Monday?
Oh, God, Motorboat Monday, my favorite. It's almost as good as Turnaround Tuesdays. But no, it's going good, man. Hit him again this weekend. We were combined 13-5 over plus 8 units, so just trying to keep the momentum going, man.
Man, I can't figure out, like, because y'all are a little bit, like, you do dogs, you do locks, you do everything. Y'all's totals are coming in strong as hell.
Yeah, man. I mean, we do the, we bet pretty much every day on the live show, but then on Friday we do our locks. Yeah, our locks, leans, and dogs in the weekend. So we take 2, locks that we like, 2 leans that we like. Then we got to take 2 underdogs, and we all at least took Kentucky this weekend at Missouri, so that one hit, and my boys from St. John's came through. So we're just trying to save the U.S. economy one bet at a time.
One bet at a time. He is Jake Crane from Crane & Company. I'm telling you, make sure you check it out and also follow him at JakeCrane_. Now, Jake, from this weekend, always madness. We're getting ready for the, we are, 6 days away from Selection Sunday. I'm just kind of curious right now. Everybody I feel is pretty confident who's going to be the number 1 overall seeds. Auburn, Duke, Florida, and Houston. At least that's the way I feel right now. You kind of agree, right?
Yeah, I think Alabama has a chance to play themselves into that last number 1 seed if they were to win the SEC tournament, but you feel like it's about 70-75% locked up. I think Auburn's already locked up the number 1 overall seed, but man, it ought to be a crazy tournament.
Out of those four teams that I mentioned, you can throw in 5 and throw in Alabama. Which one do you think right now has the, like you would say, they're a number 1 seed, but I feel like this team is vulnerable because?
Well, everybody has a weakness. It's just, how weak is your biggest weakness? When I look at Houston, because I think Florida's playing better than anybody right now. But when I look at
that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah. And when I look at Houston, they kind of remind me of Tennessee. They're elite on defense. This team is scoring more points than any, I think, of Kelvin Sampson's previous Houston team, but they're really not, very strong offensively. If L.J. Cryer isn't going, they kind of struggle to get into the 70s and possibly the 80s. And, when you look at elite defense, if you're shooting the ball well, if you're hitting shots with a hand in the face, if the refs have a tight whistle, good offense is going to beat good defense any day of the week. So that's where I think kind of Houston has fallen short, and where Tennessee has fallen short. So I think Houston is the most vulnerable, even though everybody has a weakness.
Everybody does have a weakness, and Auburn's Cooper Flagg's a stud. Houston, sometimes goes through stretches without scoring. But I'll tell you one thing: L.J. Cryer can put the ball in the hole. There's always a little bit of a weakness, but this is kind of weird, and this bring it to this one because of Auburn, and like they are strong. You love Auburn. You know Auburn as well as any program out there. The one thing I was kind of wondering, could their weakness maybe be CBM and his emotions? Remember, he's the one who got ejected against Alabama, got that flagrant 2 for the senseless elbow. He also is the guy, if I remember correctly, did he not get, last year, the NC first round debacle?
Yeah.
He was ejected in that one as well. What are you thinking about Bruce Pearl? Does he need to sit down with him? Because, I'm trying to look at the chinks in the armor with Auburn, and right now, maybe emotionally, him could be the one thing that I would kind of try to address before the tournament.
Yeah, and he's 25 years old. You shouldn't be having this problem. I understand playing with emotion. I know that Chris Youngblood punched him in the stomach when he was driving through the hole that didn't get called. But you can't retaliate. They're always going to catch the second guy, and it just seems like – because he should have got thrown out for that elbow to the back of the head. There's no excuse for it. And you would think when you got kicked out of the first round of the NCAA tournament the year before and your team lost, you would definitely be on your P's and Q's and learn from your mistakes. But at this point, he's already gotten thrown out of a huge game towards the end of the year. He obviously hasn't learned from it. And if he hasn't learned from it before, I don't expect he's going to learn from it going forward. And if you're Bruce Pearl, we have a saying in football. You don't want to take their stinger away, right, with targeting. You don't want guys playing scared to hit somebody. But at some point, you've got to sit down and be like, dude, you're costing everybody. Everybody. It's not worth it. And the referees are already looking for him. He doesn't get a lot of calls. They're watching for the jawing. They're watching for the extracurricular stuff. You're under a microscope, man. And at the end of the day, this team is too good, and you've come too far to let some childish behavior put not only your game in jeopardy, but your team's postseason aspirations in jeopardy. At some point, you got to call a spade and lay the law down, man. You can still play with emotion. You can play with a chip on your shoulder. You can play physical, but you got to stop with the cheat stuff, man. It's costing everybody.
It is costing everybody, and right now, there's everybody right now. You got to kind of look inward right now. Got to make reset, focus if you want to go cut down those nets. And the SEC has just, there's teams everywhere that have an opportunity. Again, Florida right now, though, with their trio of monsters down low, the best 3 guards, I think, combo in basketball, and then Todd Golden, who's just pushing all the right buttons. It's kind of wild. Nobody really talks much about Todd Golden, especially after the allegations of sexual harassment. Of course, those have been, pushed to the side, cleared of everything. What do you think about Golden, the job he's done, and how come nobody ever does mention him? Is it just simply that they don't want to touch that, or he just doesn't seem to get the credit everybody else does?
Well, look, first off, I think his coaching philosophy, he's very analytical. He obviously knows what he's doing. He knows how to put the pieces in place, and I think they've improved so much defensively. That's why you're seeing this rise. They could score with anybody last year. They just couldn't stop anybody. They were like LSU with Jaden Daniels, great on offense, couldn't stop a nosebleed in the nurse's office on defense, but they fixed that. I think he's really young, too. So, he doesn't get talked about with some of the old heads that are still having success. And so, but I have seen his name mentioned a lot. And, we talk about teams with weaknesses. Right now, it's tough to find a weakness for Florida. You got great front court play. You're an elite rebounding team offensively and defensively. You can put the ball in the basket from anywhere. And on the rare night where Walter Clayton isn't going off, you got Will Richard, you got Elijah Martin, you got Klobuchar from Real Madrid, who can absolutely splash it from anywhere. And then they got their big guys out there shooting threes. Condon's an NBA player. They're as hot as anybody, and I think they're the most dangerous team in college basketball right now.
I could not agree more. He is Jake Crane from Crane & Company. Make sure you're watching the show, because if not, what the hell are you doing? And if you like money, by the way, literally, if you like money, I wish I could sit there and say that I was